Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. This is Two Catholic Dudes, and my name is Ryan Klaus.
And my name is Danny Cleary.
And as always, we're not priests, we're not theologians, we're just two Catholic dudes, and we're talking about our faith.
And today, as promised, is the political episode. Well, kind of. It's not going to be like most political videos or commentaries that you've watched. It's just two Catholic dudes talking about politics.
And guess what? We're not experts. We're far from it in terms of this political realm that we're speaking from, but it's too important not to talk about, and it's too important not to try to record for a second time as well. We've had technical difficulties. We're trying it again from our remote setup here, and things are bound to go wrong when we're dealing with technology, but it's just that persistence. As we're talking about this products of persistent political polarization, as our title is so alluding to, but it's persistence in doing what we feel is important, and that's airing this podcast for you guys to listen to.
Well, and it's, it comes from I think that God sometimes uses the technology and the upping the production value to test my patience and tries to help me calm down, because I usually just say, forget it. What's the easiest way to get this thing uploaded? Because it's about what we say, not what, the quality all the time, which is true. But I more and more understand the level of importance that this has. So I did a whole setup today. I have my microphone, my lights, my camera, and as always, the technical difficulties completely fell apart on my end. So this is round 2. But it's still worth doing. We want to bring you guys the best content we possibly can at the best quality we possibly can. So here we are talking about politics,
and exactly
from a very high quality production level.
And I want to commend you on that persistence to make sure that the shot looks good today. And so we spent a lot of time trying to use the tools that you currently have in front of you to set up good shots. So if you guys aren't following us on YouTube, do so. Check out the video. If you're driving, don't do that. But if you're at home and you like to listen on your phone, maybe check it out on YouTube. Send us a good comment. Hit that like button, the little thumbs up. Those all are very much appreciated. It helps our channel grow tremendously.
Yeah.
But I said it. This is our second time. We just started, and your internet got disconnected, so we're just starting fresh. But I said it before, and I mean it still all the same. That it's probably daunting. I've been dealing with audio, video products, technology, getting in this industry for years and years and years and years, and I've accumulated all this stuff, this wealth of not only physical things here, but the knowledge of how to use them over many years. And when you're starting fresh and having to deal with that, it's probably daunting, and you don't know where to start. But it's like the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. One bite at a time. If you try to eat the whole thing in one bite, you can't do it. So it's just simple ways. You just one thing at a time. That's the best way to do it. So I commend you on just trying it. You know what I mean? And today is a great looking shot. So guys, tune in on YouTube and check out what we got right here with Danny. So nice job.
Yeah, I got all this space now. I got a new desk at work, and I'm in my office at work now instead of crammed in my bedroom. So I have a little more room to work, because that's something that I always was envious of you of, is all that room in your studio comparatively to my tiny room.
Yeah, it's looking good. It's a good looking desk. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about politics. They say don't mix politics and religion, but it's too important not to, especially in these days, because our climate is so divided. It's so incredibly divided. We have to talk about this some way. I keep forgetting to change that camera, but here we are. We're
that's
live.
all right. That's a new thing too. So if you do, it is what it is. But I think that's important, because I think right now is probably, at least for people in our generation and maybe even younger, this might be the most political time in the history of the world. It just seems like everybody is talking about politics. It seems like for instance, I couldn't tell you, and maybe this is a bad reflection of me and my being informed, but I couldn't tell you who the last governor of my state was. California, that's where we live.
Was it Arnold Schwarzenegger?
That's what I would say, but apparently there was somebody in between. But now I could tell you. I couldn't tell you names of senators or people in the House or any of that, but now I can tell you because it's just being constantly talked about and thrown in our face. And maybe that is good in some aspect. It's good to be informed, but I think also it just shows like how politicized the world is and everything that we do and every conversation that we have. And it's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons we can talk about. We've talked about social media ad nauseum on our channel, but I think that's one of the big reasons why we're so divided, more so than ever. Let's get into that. So
okay.
You haven't watched The Social Dilemma yet?
Oh, I have.
Oh, you watched it? Okay.
I watched it.
If you guys haven't watched it at home,
terrifying.
It's a terrifying watch, but it's really important.
Honestly, it was terrifying, but I kind of used it as a way to back off of social media a little bit. Like I was so obsessed for a long time, especially doing this podcast, like with how many followers we have, who's following, how posting, what time we post. And I kind of doing that. I stopped focusing so much on it.
Yeah. All right. So you're breaking up a little bit, but the point you're making right there is an important one. Is how much time are we spending on our platforms? How much time are we spending on social media? And what directions is it pulling us in our lives? And is it something fruitful, or is it something that's pulling us away from what's important in our lives? But what they touched on a lot in the show, let's see if you're back there. I think.
Yeah, I just sometimes get a little glitchy.
It's all right. We can deal with that. That's technology. That's the day and age that we're living in right now. You guys are dealing with Zoom calls all day long, and people freeze, and you just move on. So, thanks for dealing with that with us. So, but what they talked about on The Social Dilemma was that you click on a video, whether it's on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, the algorithm is going to pinpoint that, and it's going to be like, oh, you like that? So say something harmless. You watch a video. I think actually somebody did this as a test. They watched a video about puppies, just a video showing puppies. And then the next time they refreshed their YouTube feed, it just showed them more puppies, and they clicked on, and all they ever clicked, it was like a fresh profile on YouTube, and they just kept clicking on puppy videos, and it just went down the rabbit hole of more and more and more and more puppies, and that's all they ever showed them. So imagine it's something less harmless, like say you're very in the middle of the road politically, and you chose a political video that wasn't too far leaning left or right, but maybe it was just the needle was just ever so pinned to one direction to the right, and you watch this video and you watch the whole thing, you gave it a thumbs up, and now the algorithm's like, ooh, this guy really likes that video because he thumbs it up, he commented, he liked it, whatever, so they're going to give him more of that. But now he watched all the videos that are just more or less middle of the road politically, but slightly leaning to the right. And it's like, well, what else can we give him? Let's give him something else that leans a little further to the right. And then he watches all of those, but he's not seeing any counter arguments from the left side. And that needle starts going ever so slowly to the right. Before you know it, he's watching super, super, super far right videos, and he's getting wound up about it. And that's all. The important thing is that that's all that the internet is showing him, because no one's making a conscious decision. Like on The Social Dilemma, they dramatized it, and they had people like in the computer, discussing what they're going to do for this one character's feed. They're like, oh, he liked that, let's send him more of those videos. But this is just a computer algorithm, but it's ending up creating these problems where we're only seeing one side of the story, and often it's fake news. That's a whole nother topic, but or it's over dramatized, or it's elaborated issues of all the stories, right? And so we've created these people that are only seeing the side that they want to see, or that the algorithm wants them to see.
Yeah, and I can speak to it. That kind of happened to me recently, within the last few months. Is I kind of got sucked into the social media rabbit hole of watching a lot of videos because I was trying to be informed and learn more, and I ended up getting like angry and frustrated the more I watched and the more I kind of became political, and I was getting into arguments with people, and like I would see a post from someone that maybe thought differently than me, and I was immediately filled with like frustration and anger instead of trying to see their point of view. And I really had to take a step back, and I was watching that show and just kind of taking a step back at myself and going, why am I allowing myself to become so angry and bitter and frustrated over this stuff when, you know, it's not the overall most important thing in my life, but I'm allowing it to be all encompassing of everything that I feel and think. And I always advocated, and I always kind of talked a lot about how I'm not political. I'm not the political guy. I don't want to talk about it. And then all of a sudden I became the political guy, and I became the guy that wanted to talk about it constantly. And I became the person that was starting arguments and starting debates. And I was just really disgusted, to be honest with you, with myself. And it took me kind of waking up one day and realizing and looking at my social media and going, look at what social media is feeding me because of the cycle that I've started. You know, it wasn't, I started seeing way less wrestling and way more politics, and I was super annoyed with that.
But it starts to get you more fired up, and you start
it was
posting
perpetual.
more.
It was like a wheel.
Exactly. It's a feedback loop where you just can't stop that cycle unless you deliberately do something, and a lot of times that means pulling the plug. But that's really, really hard to do for everybody because it's a straight up addiction. Now, the show isn't about the social dilemma, it's about politics, but what's happening is it's pulling us down those divides.
I think that it's one and the same, because I think that most people my age, your age, are political because of what they watch and what they view and what they post on social media. And you look at a lot of these political conversations that are happening, they're not happening over coffee. They're not happening to kind of see each other's different perspectives. They're happening online where people can just put all of their thoughts on a Facebook comment and without any worrying about what the other person thinks or is going to say or how they're going to feel.
Right. And
we've eliminated that emotional part of the conversation.
Right. We've eliminated what it means to have a actual debate, an argument. I say debate and I laugh about it because I watched that first debate and it was just a screaming match, a yelling match between our two candidates. But what it means to have a actual argument in the platonic sense of like understanding the other person's viewpoint, where they're coming from, fully understanding their point, their counter argument, articulating it back to them in a fruitful manner and saying, okay, I see what you mean when you say this, and I'm going to counter that by saying this. And we're not fighting. We're not ready to take the gloves off and go at it, but it's a way to have a healthy argument. But people have lost that because it becomes that screaming match that we watched on that debate. I'm not standing behind either candidate because Trump was horrible. He wouldn't let anybody talk. Biden, would you shut up, man? Like, what kind of example are we teaching not only our children, but our society as a whole with how both of the candidates carried themselves in that debate? And I'm just going to do that air quotes again because it was nonsense, right? But going back to like how can we be empathetic to one another, hear people's points of view, if we just have a deaf ear to what they want to say? A friend of mine who I just met recently at the March for Martyrs when we were there, his name's James Klug. He's a Republican, but he goes to all these marches, all these Antifa, all these far left things, and tries to have careful debates with them and actual conversations. But now I get that this is a Republican posting on social media to try to open engagements with the left, but it ends up creating more negativity than...
Well, I mean, he's purposely going to places where he knows he's going to get those... He knows the type of reactions he's going to get.
Right.
When he goes to those, like, it's not like he goes... okay, who is the most civil that I can talk to?
Exactly. So obviously,
So,
and that's what we deal with, is that there's always a skewed vision of what we're seeing. So me, I'm
sure.
watching the videos and I'm like, oh, those left people, like they're so crazy, like they won't hear anything. But like, yeah, you could find somebody totally civil that will have a conversation,
Of
right?
course.
So, but anyways, the people that he goes to, they're completely, they have deaf ears to anything he wants to say. He's like, he's holding Trump signs and they'll like grab his signs. They've punched him. They've broken his camera. But they just won't hear. And he says, oh, what you're saying about Trump, or what you're saying about the right, is actually false. And let me tell you why. And they're like, we don't want to hear it because we just
Right.
want to tell you what kind of a jerk you are. And I'll use that language softly. They probably don't say those words, but the same thing. I mean, the same thing can happen on the other side. You know what I mean? People just don't want to hear. They don't even want to hear. They say, oh, those facts that you've been given about your party, they might not be entirely true. Let me tell you why. And they go, no, 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 no. I don't want you to tell me why, because my beliefs are so strong and I don't want you to change those beliefs.
Yeah, it just seems like that there's a lot of that going on. My biggest problem with everything going on, and I'm not trying to get on here and tell you who I'm voting for or advocate for one party or another. That's not what this show is about, and that's not what why we wanted to talk about it. Is the biggest issue I have, and I was talking to my younger brother about this, who we tend to disagree on a lot of stuff, but the issue is we live in a society nowadays where it's once you turn 18, it's okay, choose a side, pick a team. And if you don't subscribe to everything that specific team says, then that's when the problems begin. Now you're everyone is, if you're on the left, you think that everybody on the other side is racist or stupid, or they are homophobic, or they do all these. Those are like the typical things. And then if you're on the right hand side, you immediately think that everybody on the left is insane and they don't want the police, and they want to advocate for violence, and they want to riot, and they want to burn, and they want to do all these things. When it's like there's completely civil people on both sides of this discussion that have that want to discuss, that really want what's best for them, the country, and it's just because of, we go back to social media, because of social media, and I think because of the way that the actual media makes this all out to be, you feel like you have to pick a team and you have to fight for your team. I'll use this as an example. I was watching Game 7. The Dodgers were playing. The Dodgers, go Dodgers, obviously. But before the game before they got to the World Series, I was watching that game, Game 7, and a commercial came up for. It's actually, today is Thursday. Tonight is the final presidential debate, but a commercial came up for the debate, and the way that the commercial was structured, and the way that the commercial was, shot and cut together, I have seen UFC, professional wrestling, NBA Finals style commercials the exact same way. It was like, coronavirus, taxes, racism, everything hangs in the balance. Trump versus Biden, winner takes all. It's like
Ladder cage match tonight. It's
that
like
exact thing. If you change the words to like ladders, chairs, cage match, the winner's the world champion, it's exactly the same thing. And the fact that we are just like, oh, cool, like, gotta tune in. Like, this is the leader of the free world who's supposed to not represent one side or the other, but supposed to represent all Americans.
Right. And
and that's something that we've forgotten, that at the end of the day, whichever letter is next to your name, you're still an American citizen. You're part of the United States. And that's something that we've lost. Is I don't know what either side. It's hard to say that you're proud to be an American at this point for the way that we act and the way that we treat each other. Like, because sure, we can look at the the political figures of this world and say, oh, well, the president shouldn't act like that, or, oh, this person shouldn't act like that. And sure, that's true. But what about ourselves? What about how we act? What about how we respond? And that is what changed a lot of my thinking, because I had to look at myself and go, the way that I'm reacting, the way that I'm talking to people on Facebook, the arguments I'm attempting to start, that is not a reflection of who I am. And now we'll bring this into it. It's not a reflection of who God has called me to be, regardless of what my political standing is. And I think that a lot more people right now need to think about that. Be like, yeah, sure, you can say the president shouldn't do this, or the vice president shouldn't act this way, and all this other stuff. But what about how you should act? What about how you conduct yourself? That's who you should be first and foremost accountable of.
Yeah, you can't change how other people are going to act, and you can scream and yell on social media all you want, but really the only way that you can make a difference is to go out and vote, right? But you can choose how you react in everything in life. And so I think it's all the more important with this political realm that we're in is choose not to get into it, because you're not going to change someone's mind probably. Show them with your actions how you can be a better person. And we're all called to a higher calling, a calling of holiness. This is a religious podcast, so we have to speak on how God is in all of this. And now you made a comment a bit ago, and I don't know why I hadn't thought of this before, but it's like we're called in our political society to like choose a side, pick a team, and stand for everything that team stands for. And so many people, they buy into literally every single thing and they're like, oh, if my Republican Party or my Democratic Party says this, I believe it 100%. Now, when I first registered to vote, I'm getting to the point a long way, as I normally do. When I first registered to vote when I was 18, I signed up as independent or like undecided or whatever, because I said, you know what? I feel like there's merit on both sides. I feel like some of the things that the Republicans say is great. Some of the things that the Democrats say is great. I want to pick and choose, and I don't want to have my ballot. When you get your primaries, you can only vote for the party that you're registered to. I was like, I want to be able to vote for whoever based on what that particular person says. And even that person, I don't 100% stand for everything that they stand for. But as we've moved along, we've been more polarized, as this episode is about. And so my friend said it this way, and I agree. He says, you know what? I've always been in the middle, kind of, but leaning towards the right. And I'm the same way. But I am a very liberal personality in a sense. It's hard to describe exactly what I mean by that, but I'm liberal in just the way I carry myself in the world, but more conservative in my political stance. But I do see merit from both sides. But as time has gone on, my thing is pegged more towards the right, because that's what's happening in our society, right? But now here's the point I'm finally making, is people are picking a team, like I said, and going all in on it. But why then are we, in terms of our faith and our religion, choosing to cherry pick what we believe? That's Protestantism, is you say, oh, you know what? I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. But this part in the Bible, I don't like this part in the Bible. We're going to eliminate that. We're going to eliminate that. We're going to find the way we want to view our faith as our own. And then they end up starting their own political party, right? So they're like a Green Party or independent or whatever. But
Libertarian.
But if people are buying so much into, I'm straight up Democrat, everything they say is God's truth, or Republican, or vice versa, or whatever. But it's like, why aren't we doing that with our faith and saying, I am Catholic and I believe what our Catholic Church, and I'm not just gonna be like, oh yeah, I believe 96% of what the Catholic Church believes, but then that 4% not for me, right? That's not what our church is about and what we should be believing as Catholics. So it's funny that we're so polarized in one sense, but then when it comes to our faith, we're a little wishy-washy about it, right?
Well, and it comes down to this too. I think that there's a big problem with everybody right now is so for Trump against Trump, for Biden against Biden, and everyone's kind of really putting their focus on this polarizing person because of the leadership that they're going to have in the country. But at the end of the day, I'm not really too invested in either one of those people, because neither one of them is my God. None of them is going to really change how I live my life. Like me, how I choose to morally and how I choose to treat other people and live my life. Like that, they may affect like these earthly policies and stuff, and like that will affect my life, sure. But like at the end of the day, neither one of them is perfect, and neither one of them is really cares about me all that much or will ever know who I am. Like, so that's why I'll never put all my focus on any one of these people or any politician for that matter. Now I want to touch on, I did it for my Tuesday thoughts, and I want to talk about it a little bit because I think it's important. If I can kind of jump a different direction here. I think right now, everybody, including people of God, people of the church, priests, other people, are so focused on politics that it is becoming it's frustrating for me a little bit. I saw a video of a priest that came out and he gave this big long homily on why you should vote a certain way. And where I may have agreed with him politically and some of the stuff he said, I thought it was super inappropriate to do that as the homily at the mass. I think if he wanted to release a video about his opinions, sure, by all means. But at the mass, that mass isn't about who we're voting for. That mass is about the holy sacrifice of Jesus and being in communion with each other and with the Lord. And I think that when you have a situation like mass where you don't know who the political parties that are sitting, the political views of the people sitting in the pews, what you know about the people that are sitting in the pews is that they are loved by the Lord and that they're there to partake in the holy sacrifice. And that unity should be the most important thing in that moment. So I thought it was super inappropriate. And I clicked the video off because I was so annoyed. Like I said, and I agreed with a lot of what he said politically. I just think that where he said it and how he addressed it was super not cool. And I think it goes back to, okay, so we look at the gospel from this last Sunday. Here's my point. Dude,
you're doing it like I do. You're going the long way
going
around
and around. Yeah. My pastor, who I have a ton of respect for, he in his homily mentioned about how he's been really invested in watching TV and knowing what's going on with the new Supreme Court justice and what's going on in the polls, what are the numbers, and it took away from his time of prayer, from his time of spiritual growth in his own life, from his time of dedicating specific moments to God, specific time in his day and his weeks to God. And we go back to the gospel where people say to Jesus, like, should we pay taxes to Rome? And he says, whose image is on the coin? And they say, well, Caesar's. And he says that very, very incredible line of, well, give to Caesar's what is Caesar's, but give to God what is God. And now here, this is what I'm going to say. This is going to be my big moment of the day, of the point I really want to be heard. So everyone that's if you're in your car, if you're watching and you're kind of doing something else, if you could give me your attention for just a second. That statement, whose image is on the coin and whose image is now imprinted upon us. You're not Republican first. You're not Democrat first. You're not Green Party first. You are made in the image and likeness of God. So everything else should stem from the fact that you are loved and cherished by the Lord and that you are called to live a life that God has called you to live and treat people the way God has called you to treat them. And we can't give all of our time to everything that's going on in the world that's political and everything that's going on in the world and let that replace or let that take away from our time with the Lord and our time with growing spiritually with who God calls us to be. Because if we are right with that part of our life, if that part of our life is lined up, then these other decisions will probably come a lot easier, in my opinion. That's the point I really want to make is we're so quick to label ourselves, politically, but how often are we able to say proudly that you're a believer in the Lord Jesus?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. A wonderful point. And it's like, that's really the point of the episode, is lead with your faith. Let your faith guide you and help you discern on how you are to vote. But I love what you were saying about your pastor and my old pastor, Monsignor. Hello, if you're listening, I miss you. And I think a lot of us fall into this, is you get tied up in watching. You get tied up in watching, and it's the same with TV. If are you a CNN watcher? Are you a Fox News? They're going to go down the rabbit hole on those particular parties, those issues. It's going to be very skewed. It's going to be very one-sided. But if you find yourself being so tied up in following the polls, following who's leading in the races, watching everything, there's a fine line between being informed and just like letting yourself,
and being obsessed
with it, right? Because again, what can we change? We can change with our vote, and we need to be informed when we vote. We're just not going to the poll and be like, oh yeah, blah blah blah, like filling out like a Scantron in school, and you're like, I didn't study for this test at all. I'm just gonna like make a cool design on here. That's not what we should be doing at the polls. It's like,
no, of course not. And we're not advocating you should vote. You should vote. You should go and be and be informed when you vote. Let's advocate for that. You should vote, and
I'll do it on my camera too. You should vote.
Good.
You should vote right there. Okay.
But I don't believe that, this is my personal opinion, and I may catch flack for this from other church folk, but I don't believe that how you vote changes the way that God views you and how much God loves you. I don't believe that voting Republican automatically means that you're a Christian.
Right. I mean, that's the big argument. Okay, well, let's get into that really quick.
Okay, let's get into that.
So people say the only Catholic vote is a Republican vote. That's most of the argument I hear, because Democrats are pretty much pro-choice, which means they're for abortion. And so you say you can't morally vote with the Catholic vote because they're voting to kill a baby and kill a human being, right? And then the Democrats are saying, yeah, but you guys don't care about a human being once they're coming out of the womb. Everyone's yelling at everybody, but what's the point I'm making on that? What I was gonna say is, like, if you vote for Democrat, maybe it doesn't mean you're a murderer. And if you vote for Republican, maybe it doesn't mean you're a racist, or that you, you know what I mean?
It's not a one issue situation. That's the thing about it, is it's like there's a lot of things that, as far as where the church goes, on both sides, I would argue. Right.
The tricky thing is abortion, and I get that. That's the biggest hot button issue. I believe if we can sort that out, everything else would get a little bit easier in terms of where we're at in at least with our Catholic vote, because that's a pretty big issue when we're talking about murdering somebody, because they are somebody. That baby in the womb is definitely a somebody.
Well, I was trying not to be too overly like, who am I voting for and stuff like that on the podcast, but it's like, being pro-life and unapologetically pro-life is a lot of what sways my vote pretty much on every situation. I'm not saying that is how it is for everybody and how that determines whether or not you're a good Catholic or a good Christian or not. I think that you have to spend time. I invite you, friends that are listening, that when you take time to be informed on your vote, and you take time to read and to learn up on the propositions or the candidates or the whatever it is, the many different things that are on the ballot this year, spend also time to pray for those things. Pray, ask God for guidance. Don't just ask YouTube or Google or Facebook for who to vote for. Spend some time in prayer. Open your heart and say, Lord, what send me where you want me to go. What's the best move for me here? Let the Lord speak to your heart and see if that will help in your decision making.
Dude, that's such a good point. Let me interject really quick on that, because I think that's a huge point, is the power of prayer. We can do so much power with what we can do at the voting booth, at the polling places, right? We have a lot of power in this democracy as we vote, but I think we have more so in the power of prayer and the power that God can impact on this world. And we so quickly forget about that because we let our human emotions drive us. We let us, all the things we've been talking about, going down the rabbit hole on watching social media, watching TV, watching the news, and forgetting the power that God can have on the impact of what's going on in this world. So say you are vehemently behind, against abortion. You are a pro-lifer, but you side with pretty much everything else that the Democrats are behind, and you want to vote for the Democratic Party, but you are so conflicted on the issue of abortion. You're like, this is not right. I don't believe this, but I stand for most everything, and I feel like I'm a Democrat without that little caveat. Pray for your politicians. Pray for them to have a change of heart. Pray, vote them into the office, but pray for them to change their policies, change their mindset, for us as a society to change our viewpoints on abortion so that we can collectively look back. We talked about it on our last episode. We can collectively look back, 170 years, 100 and however long it is, 180 years after slavery and say, what monsters we were that we thought that was cool, that we thought that was just the way society works.
That was acceptable.
That was just acceptable, right? We've moved for the most part. Obviously, there's always going to be exceptions. We've, for the most part, moved past that as a society. So you know what? We're sorry, everyone. Slavery was horrible. We want to move past that and say, guys, abortion are bad. That's a huge mistake. I'm trivializing this, right? With that language that I just used, it's horrendous. But we can move past that. Maybe both parties say, you know what, we are both pro-life. Now,
yeah, that's dream situation is both parties come together and go, you know what, holy mackerel, yeah, no, that's a life.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a human life, because that's one thing that I say, like with my big political frustration. I'll share this with you guys, and I'm getting more and more political as the episode goes on.
Good,
but
I don't know.
A lot of the I'm a big right now. I'm frustrated with the coronavirus situation, and I'm frustrated with the fact that churches are still outside. I'm frustrated with the archdiocese I work in, that they are not allowing ministry, that they're limiting the sacraments, that they're limiting the spiritual growth of people. It's frustrating over a virus that, when there's ways that I believe there's ways that we can take care of each other and look out for each other, because that's part of being pro-life, but also do things and have the spiritual growth and the mental health, take that into consideration when we do all these things. There's a lot of that goes on. So, and I think that the science of things is important, right? But on that same point, there is, I guess I could pull up the statistics of how many scientists actually believe where life would begin. But if we're going to follow the science for one thing, shouldn't we follow it for the other thing? That's my opinion.
That's the same pick and choose standard that we're talking about with, diving
like
all in on your political parties, but picking and choosing with your faith or whatever in your life, right?
And like I said, this is my personal opinion, that it's like a lot of people are mad right now at the whole climate change debate. Okay, like the science says this and the science says that, and people are denying science. And it's like, my argument then is, how are people denying that life begins at conception?
Right. I think so much, we could go in circles about abortion.
Sure.
We're not really going in circles. We have a stance on it.
My stance right now, I'll tell you right now, unapologetically, I am a pro-life Catholic.
Yeah.
I believe life begins at conception and abortion is murder, period.
Right. As I mentioned before. But I'm not going to yell and scream at somebody who votes for a party that is pro-choice, or why don't they call it anti-life? They always have to put a positive spin.
That's not it.
That's really what it is, though.
The Democratic Party leans more towards they don't want the death penalty.
Right, exactly.
And as a pro-life Catholic, I'm against the death penalty.
Right.
And trust me, that one's a lot harder, because you see some of the crimes that these people commit, and it's like the human anger part of you is like, goodbye.
Yeah.
But we have to remember who we're called to be.
That's right.
It's hard. It's challenging, because let me tell you guys, being a voter and being a Christian is hard. Following God is hard. It's difficult. but that's what we're called to do.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off again. Go ahead.
No, the last thing I was going to say, you don't yell and scream at your fellow Catholic, your neighbor, if they don't vote the way you want to. Just hope that they pray for all of us to become to meet in the middle and all become pro-life. All find a common ground on these issues that are so dividing us. But the reality is, we need to fix our infrastructure in terms of our social media, in terms of our news sources, in terms of everything that's pulling us apart, because what we're doing is we're getting skewed visions of even the issues and the topics. Look at Pope Francis, the thing that just came out. I even heard that just came out yesterday.
Ryan getting into the hot button topics.
They said he was. It was like a news article. I didn't even read into it because I'm like, I'm not gonna read this because I feel like it's a fake news. I feel like it's.
Well, he was horribly misquoted.
Right. And it was him. The quote was like, Pope Francis is legalizing gay marriage in the Catholic Church, or something like that.
No,
and it's like,
that's not at all what happened.
And then like another one that says like he fully stands behind gay marriage, and then they're like, and then another one's like, yeah, that's not what he said either. Like, what do you guys? How are you changing his words? You know what I mean? I didn't even read it because like I go, I'm not going to get sucked into this. I know this is like clickbaity stuff. They want to like drive the emotion in us. I was like, how many times have we seen that from Pope Francis? Everyone gets riled up and we're like, guys, this was from like a talk he gave 4 years ago. And
it's hard for me to speak on that because I'm a big advocate of Pope Francis. I think that he's really great, and I think that he's good for the church, and I think that he's helping the church in a lot of ways.
And that's an example of you. Again, we haven't like exactly said what we're voting for, but yeah, you can pretty much imagine. Like we both lean to the right, but Pope Francis is very much on the left. But like we can be fully supportive and appreciate some of the things that he's doing, and not just say like Pope Francis is like an invalid pope because of his stances on all these things and he's so left and whatever. Like no, we can be empathetic to. He is the vicar of Christ and fully support him in that.
It comes down to I respect the office,
right?
And it comes down to like when President Trump was elected and everyone's like, he's not my president. It's like,
but he is.
He is. So I'm sorry that you don't disagree with him. You don't like him, and that's fair. You're allowed to not like him, but he is the president.
Right. Let's respect the office. Salute the office, right? But I don't stand behind. I stand behind a lot of the policies that he makes, but like him as a person, I'm like, oh my gosh, like you gotta calm down, bro.
Well, because I worry about this. Is it going to become a situation where now for the rest of time, because it's there's two sides that are just so intense, is it going to be okay? One side is always like, that person's not my president,
right?
Well, and that's what we're missing.
At what point do we have a second civil war?
Right.
You know, it's getting to that point. I've
Jesus, if you're listening to this podcast, now would be a good time for you to come back. We need some unification.
I mean, who knows? And so it's a pendulum, and this pendulum has swung like this, and it's gradually getting more, and it's at the point where it's about to swing over the top. You know, when you're like a kid and you're like, Mom, do you think I could swing all the way over the thing? I'm like, no, that's not gonna happen. Like, we're at that point in our nation right now when it's like, we're gonna swing, we're gonna fly across, and we're gonna fly off the swing and hit our face on the concrete outside of the sandbox. This metaphor is falling apart really quickly.
but I understand what you're saying, but it comes down to this too. I think it's the same with, we've been very big advocates. And now people are listening to this podcast and we're being very cryptic. They're like, it seems like you're on one side politically for sure. And like, that's fair. But like on the other argument that we're kind of always in, which is in the Catholic world, the more traditional and the more modern Catholic, people would argue that me and Ryan are on the more liberal side of the church.
Right. Exactly.
And
that's a great point.
Because I look at I guess to some people, I'm a Pope Francis apologist. You know, I tend to side with Pope Francis. I think that he's a good for the church. I think that what he says is bold. I don't necessarily agree with everything, but I do think that he is really doing a lot of really great things for a lot of people, and he is a great example of Christ's love. Whereas I look at a lot of Catholic figures on Instagram that say really extreme stuff to people like Taylor Marshall. I think that dude is the worst. And a lot of people really like him that follow us and that I know and that I'm friends with. I think that guy is awful. He put out a video yesterday condemning video games. Like he was like saying, don't play video games.
To be fair, video games are the worst. No, I'm just kidding. Like what?
But on this point, so like in defense of video games for a second.
I'm just kidding, by the way. It's fine.
Sure. But like they help a lot of kids right now and adults, myself included, for mentally, you know, everyone's like, oh, if you want to play your sports games, just go out and play sports. If you want, like, you don't know what people's life is like. And sometimes video games can be a really beautiful thing to bring people together. Like I got a chance, I shared a couple weeks ago, I got a chance to talk and play with a friend of mine that lives across the country and connect with him. But anyway, that's completely beside the point.
Everything in moderation.
But I'm saying is, you never know where you land. Is you have to remember that you're an individual human being with individual thoughts, and you don't have to subscribe to everything a political party tells you. Mm-hmm. You can use your faith. That subscription should be where you do your checks and balances of everything else. In my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And everything in moderation. Everything in this world in moderation. You know what? And like even in our Catholic Church, there's these 3 pillars of our Catholic Church, and some people have them out of whack. They're askew in some way, shape, or form. So whether they're going out in almsgiving and evangelizing too much, or they're praying too much, or they're putting too much stock into the liturgy. So say those are the 3 really. They can all boil down to those categories, whether we're talking about liturgy, talking about prayer, talking about evangelization in some way, shape, or form. If you only ever evangelize but you never pray and you never go to mass, your Catholicism is askew. If you only ever talk about the liturgy, i.e. Taylor Marshall and folks like that, and that often comes with the traditional Latin Mass. We're not going to get to this episode again, but like this trickles down to your politics as well. But in terms of Catholicism, if you're only screaming and yelling at people about how they run a liturgy, but then where's your prayer life, and where's your evangelization, where's your almsgiving, where's your outreach to the greater community?
Right.
You're also askew. So those 3 need to be in perfect balance, but that balance should be represented in all that we do in this life. We should take that balance and use it. Whether we're playing video games, the video games can be healthy, like you said. It can be a great outlook or a great outreach and a great help for us mentally, especially through this time. But if we spend 20 hours a day playing the same video game, we're now askew, or we're out of whack in that moderation in our life. So use it a little bit. Connect with your friend on the East Coast. That's wonderful. But then go get some fresh air. Go spend some time with your family. Go spend some time in church or in prayer, right? So and then in our politics, this episode's still about politics. Here's our title again. This episode is still about politics. So if we're going to dive into our politics, let's find moderation in that. Let's be informed. Let's take the time to read up on our policies. Let's time to read up about our candidates, about what values they hold, what values connect with us internally. Let's take that to the polling place. Let's vote as an informed Catholic would. Let our faith guide us. But let's not let that politicalness get out of skew and out of whack. And let other things in our lives be diminished because we're putting so much time, so much effort, so much of our mental energy into that political realm that the rest of our life gets out of whack. And we find ourselves on social media yelling, screaming, or God forbid, I don't know what's worse, in front of somebody in actual real life yelling and screaming, or those people that are punching the guy, whatever you're doing. Find moderation in this world. Lean on Christ in all that we do, and things will settle in, right?
Yeah, just remember, everybody, that and I think this is one of the closing points I want to make here, because this is something that I posted. I've seen it quoted a lot of times, and I think it's really important. Just because you disagree with somebody, that does not make them your enemy. And that's something that I had to learn, and something that I fell into. Is I started deleting people and starting arguments with people that I've known my whole life because we had a difference in political opinion. At the end of the day, everybody is a beloved child of the living God. That should be more important than how they vote. How you love, how you live, how you treat people, that's more important than how you vote. Voting is important, but it cannot trump, excuse me, political. It cannot overshadow.
Pun intended.
It cannot overshadow the way that we treat each other. I've seen friends, family on the internet come at each other. People in my own family I've seen argue over politics on Facebook. I myself have argued with family members, with people that I love over things that just don't, like, at the end of the day, it shouldn't change how I love or how I respect the people in my life or the people in your life. It shouldn't change how you love the Lord. It shouldn't change any of that. And that's the biggest thing I want to end with today. Or I want to not end with, but I want to make clear today. Before you're a Republican, before you're a Democrat, you're a follower of Jesus. And that should be the number one thing on your list. That should be the party that you use to vote with when you look at everything. And then let God, let your conscience, let your prayer, let your spiritual life, let that be your guide on what you do. As that's how I vote. That's how I pray that you vote. And that's my thought on that.
Amen, brother. I think that's a great way to wrap this up. I'll say this was a much better Halloween episode than last year. We didn't dress up, but I don't know if you noticed, but this will air what would have been our Halloween.
Yeah, this will be our Halloween episode.
This would be the Halloween episode. So
isn't Halloween canceled?
I mean, you posted it today. It's like we've already been wearing masks for the last 7 months and just eating
candy. So I don't need a whole day dedicated to it.
But Halloween this year is All Hallows Eve. No, I'm just kidding. It's a Saturday. And
I'll be at mass.
It was every year. It's All Hallows Eve, but yeah, it's just like Thanksgiving is a Thursday this year.
So that means that Sunday though is All Saints Day.
That's right. So Sunday.
What a long litany of saints it's going to be at mass.
I'll do them all. I'm going to do all the saints.
Every saint.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Sunday, All Saints Day usually, 6 times out of 7 doesn't fall on a Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't know the math minus leap year.
Well,
anyways, it hasn't fallen on a Sunday.
I'm going to put it into the universe now and keep us accountable. So what we're going to do is it'll give us a week to do some research. Is next Monday on the podcast, we're going to do like Ryan and I'll each pick like our top 3 or top 5 favorite saints.
Okay.
That could be fun.
Yeah.
Who was your confirmation saint? Stuff like that.
Sure. Okay. Let's see if we can do that episode. So that'll be our All Saints Day episode, which will be the Monday.
It'll be the day after. So
sure. So yeah, go to church on All Saints Day. It's a holy day of obligation because it's a Sunday, but it always is anyways. So pretty cool. So.
I want to touch on that really quick, just as we lead into All Saints Day and as we lead into this week where we want to keep it in mind, because I was talking to a youth minister friend of mine, and he brought up this point, and I thought it was really cool. And it was when we like idolize celebrities or politicians or people like that, we can't necessarily pick up the phone and call them, for advice and for guidance in our life. But in our Catholic faith, like we believe that when it comes to the saints, we can pray and ask for their direct prayers and inspiration in our life. And I thought that was a really cool thing.
Good. We'll hit on that a lot more next week as well. So I think that wraps. This is a good episode. I enjoyed this healthy discussion. I hope you guys liked coming along for the ride. Hopefully you didn't get too angry with us siding. But here's the thing: you got to take a stance sometimes in this life, whether or not we did it too abruptly or definitively. I think you pretty much know where we stand on a lot of these things. So,
and regardless, agree or disagree, we still love you.
We still love you. We still support you. We pray for us all as a world, as a nation, as a country, as a people, as a church, a nation, as children of God. Right. So get out there and vote. Vote from your heart, with your faith, with your soul, with the courage and faith and strength of God within you, and get out there and let's do it. That's next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Oh my gosh. So
the day after Monday.
Yeah. That's usually when Tuesday falls. So guys, we'll
I have a Tuesday thought on election day.
Well, you better get on it. All right. So, I'm sure we'll have more to say on this subject as we find out who our next president will be, like in December, because it's going to take so long to figure it out. But
Probably.
don't be discouraged. Whatever the outcome is, we will get through this as a country together. But no
matter who's president, Jesus is still king.
Exactly. So we just got to keep leaning on our faith, and we're going to get through this, guys. So thanks for coming along with us. As always, follow us on social media. We're a little bit more distant lately, but please continue to reach out. We see your messages. We'll get back to you eventually. And find us on Facebook. On YouTube is where these episodes air. If you're not watching them, if you're just listening, you can always find us there and comment and see whatever we're doing visually.
Yeah.
And then find us on patreon.com/2CatholicDudes. If you feel so inclined to support us financially, that helps us greatly continue to grow this channel. And
if you sign up on Patreon, I believe it's the $20, $25 level, you will get a 2 Catholic Dudes mug.
I don't have it here to show off again, but
I don't have it here either. But I've just we have a couple of our patrons that have received their mugs, and they're very happy having a cup of Joe, 2 Catholic Dude style. So if that is something that interests you, take a consideration and look on Patreon.
Beautiful, awesome. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. As always, peace.